Have you ever felt like the real threat wasn't the one who raised their voice, but the one who smiled a little too politely? What if the person you call a friend, the one who laughs at your jokes, checks in often, and plays the role perfectly, is actually hoping you disappear when no one's watching? And here's the real question. What if the most dangerous people in your life aren't the ones who hate you out loud, but the ones who study you in silence? Let's make one thing clear. Evil doesn't always announce itself with malice. It doesn't slam doors or pick fights. Sometimes it shows up with coffee in hand, a warm smile, and eyes that track your every move. The true predator rarely barks. It blends, and that's what makes it so terrifying. Hatred is easy to spot, but malice wrapped in charm, that's the kind of threat you never see coming until it's too late. This video isn't about paranoia. It's about precision. It's about sharpening your awareness in a world that constantly tells you to stop overthinking, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to trust the surface. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to wake you up, because the people who can hurt you the most are rarely strangers. They're the ones you've already let in. The ones who know your schedule, your soft spots, your habits. The ones who don't come at you head on, but from the side, slowly, quietly, systematically. What you're about to learn are 5 signs. Not assumptions, not hunches, but behavior patterns rooted in psychology, reinforced by stories both ancient and modern, and most importantly, ignored by too many until the damage is already done. These aren't people who dislike you. These are people who want you out of the picture, and they don't need a weapon. A threat looks like, because if danger wore horns, we'd all be safe. The truth is, it often wears a mask, a helpful hand, a familiar face. And if you've ever had a gut feeling that someone was too nice, too close, or too perfect, this might be the confirmation you've been trying to avoid. Let's get into it. Sometimes the most dangerous person in your life isn't the one who yells, confronts, or criticizes. It's the one who watches quietly, who smiles when you pass, maybe waves from across the street. They don't raise alarms. They don't make threats. They just show up again and again and again. At first, it feels like coincidence. Then it starts to feel like a pattern. And by the time you question it, it's already become a strategy. I call this the silent observer. Not your typical stalker, not someone with obvious hostility. This is far more subtle, and that's what makes it so chilling. They study you, memorize your habits, know your roots, routines, and rhythms. They don't need to follow you in a trench coat with binoculars. They just need time and access. The kind you unknowingly gave them by being open, predictable, or simply too trusting. Let me give you a story that still makes people's skin crawl. Christine, a woman I met through a speaking event, shared something she hadn't told anyone for years. She had broken up with her ex months earlier. No fights, no drama, just done. But then she started seeing him, not in the emotional way, literally, at the grocery store, in her gym parking lot, at the same cafe she liked to work in. The first few times, she brushed it off. It's a small city, she told herself. We have mutual spots. But then it kept happening. Even after she changed her gym, even after she altered her route to work, Even after she started shopping at a different store, he still appeared like clockwork. No confrontation, no threats, just a lingering presence, a shadow that didn't go away. Her friends called it obsession, but Christine started calling it what it truly was: premeditation. This wasn't heartbreak, it was surveillance. And that's when she knew it wasn't about getting back together. It was about control. Here's what makes this so dangerous. It doesn't look dangerous. In a world addicted to drama, subtle red flags often get dismissed as overthinking. But Stoic philosopher Epictetus warned that what disrupts your inner peace is never random. If someone continually disrupts your order, shows up where they don't belong, and yet carries no obvious malice, that's not coincidence. It's a message. And ignoring it because you don't want to seem paranoid is exactly what they count on. We live in a hyper-connected world. You don't need to be physically followed to be watched. Social media, mutual friends, check-ins, predictable routines, all of it can be weaponized. The modern predator isn't always dramatic. They're efficient. They don't need confrontation. They just need proximity. They don't come at you with rage. They come at you with rhythm. So how do you respond? First, listen to your nervous system. If you're unsettled, don't shame that instinct. Honor it. Second, document patterns. Where, when, who else was around. Third, don't be afraid to set boundaries, even if they feel unnecessary. Because when someone keeps showing up without being invited, that's not fate, that's force, wrapped in familiarity. The Stoics taught us to observe clearly, act decisively, and protect our peace like sacred ground. So don't wait for someone to cross a dramatic line to take them seriously. Sometimes the biggest warning signs come without a sound. And when someone's presence keeps disrupting your sense of safety, the question isn't, why are they here? It's, why haven't I stopped them yet? They don't raise their voice. They don't confront you directly. They don't even say anything that sounds like an attack. Instead, they whisper, strategically, selectively, and always just loud enough for the right person to hear. One day, your boss starts looking at you differently. Your friends seem colder. Group chats grow quieter. You're left wondering what changed, and the answer is this: someone planted doubt where trust used to live. This is the saboteur's strategy, and it doesn't look like war. It looks like erosion. See, true saboteurs don't seek attention. They seek influence. Their goal isn't to win a fight with you. Their goal is to make sure you lose before you even realize a fight has begun. These people don't attack your reputation in obvious ways. They don't accuse. They imply. They don't declare. They suggest. They don't burn your house down. They loosen the bricks until it collapses on its own. It could be as simple as a line like, "I'm worried about them lately. Something feels off." Or just that. "I don't know. They just don't seem like themselves anymore." Harmless, right? But dropped in the right ear at the right time, it becomes poison. I remember a case where someone I knew was slowly isolated at work. No one told her why. She just noticed fewer check-ins, fewer smiles, fewer opportunities. She later learned a coworker had been quietly questioning her reliability, subtly framing her as inconsistent. Never with evidence, never directly, just a shadow of suspicion that spread like smoke. And when she tried to confront it, She sounded defensive. Because how do you fight something you can't quote? That's the trap. The saboteur doesn't want to be exposed. They want to be invisible. So they move like a phantom, slipping between conversations, always appearing concerned, never malicious. They might even position themselves as your supporter, while quietly rearranging the room to stand against you. And you? You're left second-guessing your instincts, your memory, your sanity. From a Stoic perspective, this is a spiritual ambush. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." But when someone manipulates perception itself, the obstacle isn't something you climb. It's something that clouds your ability to see the truth. And when that happens, you stop acting with clarity. You start reacting from confusion. That's how the saboteur wins. Not with force, but with fog. So don't panic. Don't perform. Be deliberate. Be calm. Be strategic. The saboteur wins when you act out of fear. You win when you move with discipline. And most importantly, remember this: the person who attacks you openly is rarely the one who breaks you. It's the one who smiles while weakening your foundation. Brick by brick. Spot them. Name them if necessary. But more than anything, outlast them. Truth takes time. But when it arrives, it clears everything. Sometimes, the most dangerous person in your life isn't the one who pushes you away. It's the one who pulls you in too fast. The one who suddenly wants to know everything about you, who remembers tiny details you barely mentioned, who mirrors your emotions so well it feels like they've known you forever. But they haven't. And that's exactly what should make you pause. Because trust, when rushed, often isn't trust at all. It's strategy. This is what I call the false friend facade. They infiltrate. Their kindness feels intentional. Their interest seems flattering. And before you know it, you're confiding in them, opening up, handing over details about your life you usually keep guarded. But here's the truth. They're not building trust. They're building access. Every question they ask, every favor they offer, every emotional moment they share, it's all part of a quiet performance meant to disarm you. And it works because most of us are wired to welcome warmth. We want to believe that someone who listens well, who shows up when we're down, who asks about our past with sincerity, is doing it because they care. But caring and calculating can look the same, especially at the beginning. That's what makes this sign so dangerously easy to miss. I've seen it happen more times than I care to count. A client once told me about a friend who came into her life out of nowhere. He was thoughtful, available, always asking about her routines, her struggles, even her fears. At first, she thought she had finally found someone who truly saw her. But months later, that same friend used everything she told him, her schedule, her insecurities, her secrets, as ammunition during a conflict. It wasn't friendship. It was surveillance disguised as empathy. Seneca once said, "A friend is someone you entrust with your soul." But that trust must be earned, not handed over to the first person who smiles and listens. And that's what I want you to remember. Real connection takes time. Real friendship unfolds slowly. But manipulation, It moves fast. It flatters. It overwhelms. It makes you feel like you're the one being honored, when really, you're being scanned. So how do you protect yourself? Slow things down. If someone is becoming deeply involved in your life without a clear emotional foundation or shared history, take a step back. Ask yourself, why are they here? What are they asking for? Are they giving anything back? Or just gathering? Watch how they react when you set a boundary. Do they pull away, get offended, or keep pressing? And remember, the most dangerous intentions often come wrapped in charm. This isn't about becoming cold or suspicious of everyone who shows kindness. It's about being aware of patterns that move too quickly, feel too intense, or seem too perfectly tailored to you. People who truly care about you will honor your pace. They won't push for more than you're ready to give. They won't weaponize what you've shared. And they certainly won't disappear the moment you stop feeding their curiosity. So if someone in your life feels more interested in your data than your well-being, if they're asking for details they haven't earned, don't ignore that. In the right hands, vulnerability creates closeness, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a roadmap to your undoing. Protect that map. Guard your peace. And remember, when connection feels too good, too fast, and too convenient, it's probably not connection. It's camouflage. It always starts small. A weird joke, a sarcastic comment, a line that makes you stop for a second, just long enough to feel a shift. But then you brush it off. They say, "I could kill you and no one would know," and then laugh like it's just harmless dark humor. Everyone around chuckles awkwardly. You laugh too, because what else are you supposed to do? Call it out? Make it serious? The moment passes, but the feeling doesn't. That feeling in your gut, that was your first warning. Because when someone wants to test how much they can get away with, they rarely begin with a slap. They start with a smirk. This is what I call escalating aggression. It's not rage, it's rehearsal. It's a process where someone gradually pushes the limits of what you'll tolerate. Not because they're clumsy, but because they're calculating. They study your reactions. They track how often you flinch, pause, how quickly you forgive, how deeply you downplay what just happened. And every time you let it slide, they push a little further, until one day, the boundary they cross can't be undone. Let me tell you a story that still chills people who hear it. A woman named Leah, fresh out of college, moved into a new apartment building. She met a neighbor, let's call him Adam, who seemed shy, a little awkward, but harmless. At first, he offered to help carry her groceries, held the elevator, made small talk, nothing alarming. But then he started showing up too often, asking oddly specific questions about her schedule. Once, at a building cookout, he joked that he'd be the perfect killer because he knew how to hide evidence. Everyone laughed it off. Leah did too, but her gut tightened. Soon after, he began standing too close in the hallway, blocking her door to talk. She told herself it was social awkwardness, that he didn't mean harm. But then one evening, she found a hunting knife placed neatly on her doormat. No note, no context, just silence and a blade. That was the moment she stopped brushing it off. She installed cameras, changed her locks, documented everything. A few weeks later, footage showed Adam trying to break into her apartment at 2 a.m., wearing gloves, carrying a black duffel bag. Inside that bag, zip ties, duct tape, and a map of her weekly routine. He wasn't just weird, he was planning something. And here's the part people miss. He didn't snap. He escalated, slowly, with precision. And that knife wasn't a warning. It was a rehearsal for control. A message that said, "I'm not afraid to show you who I really am now." Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "He who is forewarned is forearmed." The greatest defense we have is not strength, it's awareness. And awareness starts by listening to what makes us uncomfortable before it becomes dangerous. So, if someone in your life pushes too far and hides behind the excuse of humor, pay attention. If they brush against your boundaries with increasing pressure, take note. If their jokes carry darkness and they repeat them just to watch how you react, that's not humor. That's strategy. These moments aren't random, they're tests. And each time you passively accept one, they learn something that you might not fight back. The message is simple, but critical. Don't minimize behaviors just because they wear a smile. Don't ignore the feeling in your gut because everyone else is laughing. And don't wait for someone to go too far before you act. If someone's energy shifts from strange to sinister, believe it, trust it, move accordingly. Because aggression doesn't always enter the room swinging. It often walks in with a joke and waits for you to let your guard down. They don't threaten, rage, or raise their voice. Instead, they wait. They observe. They smile. They ask how your day was. They remember your birthday. They offer to help. And while the world applauds their charm and reliability, they're silently doing something else. Taking notes. Mapping your habits. Testing your trust. Waiting for the exact moment when your guard drops just enough for them to strike. This is the patient predator. And they are not driven by emotion. They are driven by strategy. See, most of us are trained to notice red flags when they scream. But the patient predator, they never scream. They blend. They mimic safety. They offer help, advice, presence. But every question they ask, when are you leaving town? Who else has a spare key? When do you usually get home? Isn't curiosity, it's reconnaissance. They don't move fast because fast exposes intent. They move slow because slow earns trust. And trust, that's their way in. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone who got close to you effortlessly, not by force, but through consistency? They never asked for much. They never crossed lines. In fact, they often went out of their way to stay respectful. And then, slowly, you found yourself telling them things you usually keep guarded. You felt safe, seen, maybe even lucky to have them in your life. But over time, a part of you started noticing how they always knew just a little too much. How their timing was always perfect. How they somehow always showed up when you were alone, tired, distracted. That's not intuition gone wild. That's your survival instinct trying to speak. These individuals don't want to harm you today. They want to lull you into believing they never would. Because the more time you spend around them, the less likely you are to question them. And once you stop questioning, they start calculating. Calculating your routines, your weak spots, your support system, the cracks in your armor. They wait until your circle gets smaller, until your patterns become predictable, until you're distracted, burnt out, or convinced that no one could possibly turn on you, that's when they move. And by then, it's too late. So what can you do? You don't have to live in fear, but you do need to live with filters. Don't confuse consistency with character. Don't confuse kindness with safety. Not everyone who shows up means well. Some show up because it's the best way to get close to what they want. Be mindful of those who rush intimacy, who know too much too soon, who ask questions that don't match their role in your life. It doesn't mean they're evil, but it does mean you need to pay attention, because trust isn't something you give away. It's something others earn, slowly, over time, through alignment, not flattery, through action, not performance. And if you're ever in doubt, remember this: the most dangerous predator doesn't need to chase. They just wait for the moment when you stop watching. Stay wise, stay awake, and never, ever confuse patience for peace. Let's be clear about one thing: real threats don't always wear a mask of menace. They don't always come with clenched fists, raised voices, or red flags flapping in the wind. Sometimes, danger walks into your life in the form of a smile, wrapped in kindness, asking how your day was. Sometimes, the most harmful people are the ones who show up when you're vulnerable, who comfort you while quietly collecting information, who earn your trust, not to protect it, but to use it against you. And that's what makes them so dangerous, because when evil looks like evil, we know what to do. But when it looks like love, like friendship, like concern, we hesitate. We give it the benefit of the doubt. We call our fear paranoia and our instincts overthinking. And in doing so, we hand the enemy the very access they need. The most terrifying betrayal doesn't come from the people we fear. It comes from the people we let close. And that's why this video hasn't been about fear. It's been about discernment. Because survival isn't just about who can fight. It's about who can see clearly before the fight even begins. And if, while watching this, a name or a face came to mind, don't ignore that. That's not coincidence. That's your body remembering something your brain has been trying to rationalize. You don't need to wait for proof to take distance. You don't need to catch someone in the act to set a boundary. You don't need a court case to trust your gut, because your nervous system is to speak up when the vibe doesn't match the words. To walk away when your soul says, "This isn't safe," even if nothing looks dangerous on the surface. Because sometimes survival isn't about running, it's about recognizing. And wisdom isn't about knowing who's bad, it's about spotting who's pretending to be good. Remember this: the devil doesn't come wearing horns. He comes wearing your favorite sweater, holding your favorite drink, saying exactly what you want to hear. So trust your gut. Trust that whisper. Trust the way your chest tightens when someone gets too close too fast. Trust the goosebumps that show up when a joke lands too dark. And trust the silence that falls when a friend suddenly knows too much. Your instincts exist for a reason. Your body has survived things your mind hasn't processed yet. And the moment you stop needing permission to listen to yourself, that's when you become dangerous. Not to others, but to the ones who thought they could manipulate you forever. So let me leave you with this. Don't apologize for protecting your peace. Don't justify your distance when something feels wrong. And don't second-guess the voice inside you that keeps saying, "Watch them." That voice isn't fear, it's intelligence. Stay sharp, stay kind, stay alive.